Welcome to the MooseFit Method, the podcast where we train with purpose, live with intention, and pursue strength that lasts. I'm your host, Kirk Moose, and this show is for anyone, especially those of us who know it's time to take back our health, our clarity, and our faith. Here at MooseFit, we believe fitness isn't just about muscles and micros, it's about becoming whole, stronger in body, sharper in mind, and deeply rooted in spirit. Ready to shake up the conversation? Let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to the MooseFit Method, where fitness meets purpose. I'm Kirk, and today I have Toby Downs with me. He is a guest, and we've recorded in the past together. We always enjoy having long conversations. And today we want to talk about the real deal, the sustainable food hacks that make everyday living healthy possible. I mean, let's just think about it, Toby. You and I have both been on a fitness journey for a while now. And if you don't make micro adjustments as you go through your day-to-day, it's almost not sustainable. Or maybe it's just not sustainable at all.
Thanks for welcoming me, Kirk. We've talked about this a number of times, both in recording and offline. Just a little background. I've been on my fitness journey for over 8 years now. I've had a couple of shifts and changes as we go. But yeah, food is a very important component of a health journey, regardless of what your goals are. If it's adding muscle, if it's losing weight, if it's improving your sleep or your mood, mental health, and fitness, a lot of things are impacted by the things that we put in our mouth, whether it's food or drink. You use the word hack. That's catchy, and I like to share tips and hacks, if you will, about food too. But I think you used a word a moment ago that's way more important to consider, and that's sustainable. What we're going to share tonight, I hope, adds value to people in a way that is sustainable over a long period of time versus looking for a quick fix.
Well, let's go and kind of quantify that for folks out there. For example, right now, Toby, you're going through a pretty extensive regiment because you're getting ready for a bodybuilding contest. And because of that, the diet that you currently have, in reality, is not really sustainable for the average person over a long period of time.
No, it is a very extreme season that I'm going through. It is under supervision, and it is for a very short period of time. And it is not what I would recommend to anybody outside of the bodybuilding world. It's not sustainable. But you're right, it is very regimented, and there's some pretty extreme things that we're doing to cut weight right now. But as you and I've talked about before, if weight loss is your goal, anywhere from a pound to maybe 2.5 pounds a week is the only way to do that in a healthy way.
That's right. And just as a caveat, just for folks that are out there that may be listening, that may be dealing with some health issues, certain health conditions means that you need to have a doctor's supervision. So if you are dealing with heart issues, possible stroke issues, you really need to have your doctor involved in your dieting because they'll know what's best for you and how to properly monitor you as you're cutting certain things in your diet. And sometimes you might add something to your diet that could affect any medication that you're taking. And you need to make sure that you're being very careful with that. Now, I know for myself, as I've gone through my journey, and I think you've seen the same thing, there's moments where you kind of feel stuck. You're hungry, you're munchy, you want to go graze, right? That's what I call it. I go and graze. I'll just go grab a handful.
Eating out of boredom.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily even boredom. I'm hungry. I get hungry off and on all day long, but I'll grab like a handful of nuts, dried fruit, or other things like that a lot of times. But it used to be I'd grab chips or pretzels or, fill in the blank with whatever I found in the refrigerator, including a slice of pizza or anything else it could be. And I think making wise choices, especially in the moments when we're feeling that, that real desire to munch because we're feeling hungry. It could even be, like you said, boredom. We haven't gotten a hold of ourselves to where we're not keeping ourselves from eating when we get bored, if that makes sense. Because I know that we've all been in those seasons, but I also know that there's some things that we can do that help us gain control of our body and our emotional side of things, to where that is no longer a factor, I would say. I know for myself, in my journey, one of the things that I've done over the years is intermittent fasting. And fasting in itself forces me to put my body in check. You know, you and I are both believers. We believe in the Lord. And because of that, sometimes we even go through faith-led fasts. And because of those faith-led fasts, we'll end up putting our spirit and body in alignment through that process, to basically teaching our body that it's not the one in control. And in the same way, when we're trying to get healthy, sometimes if you do an intermittent fast, I personally recommend doing it with the intentions to get your spirit aligned with your body, to where you're, you know, making it to where you are saying, body, you're no longer in control. I'm putting it in submission to the spirit. The spirit is the one that's listening to God, right? And then at that point, when you're going through your fitness journey, it's not going to be nearly as much trouble or problematic for you to kind of sustain from eating things that you're not supposed to.
Yeah, Kirk, I know fasting is certainly part of the Christian faith, and there's a version of fasting in almost all faiths of the world. And I think it's right to make sure that you are putting the Lord first in anything you're doing, including your health. And there are health benefits, as you mentioned. I think there are a lot of things that people can do even outside of fasting
Oh,
that
absolutely.
we're going to share tonight. One thing that works really well for me is to begin my meals, every meal, with protein. It's obviously very important for muscle repair and growth, but it also really helps support weight loss by preserving lean mass. One thing about protein is protein takes planning. The things you talked about earlier that you just grab off the shelf or out of a box or at the store, most of the time they're not protein based. There's a few exceptions, beef jerky or maybe hard boiled eggs in a deli. Um, so focusing on protein takes more planning, it takes more intentionality, but you can eat a lot of food if you will start with protein. And then I would expand that to what I'll call all natural foods. So if staying away from highly processed foods, things that have multiple ingredients, trying to eat single ingredient foods. You've heard of the protein, fiber, color type. I don't like the word diet. I call it a meal plan or whatever. But you can pretty much eat until your body tells you, I'm tired of chewing. I've had enough food. Um, and I think that's really successful, at least for me, is starting every meal with protein.
Oh, absolutely. I would go as far as saying is if someone's heavily exercising, every meal and every snack needs protein in it. And that could mean that you need a little bit of like maybe a spoon of peanut butter, something that'll give you that protein boost. And I do recommend something that's not heavy in sugar, because most foods that we have today are heavily modified. And just like you said, I agree. The fewer the ingredients, the better. Now, saying that, try to do that when you go to the grocery store and get your bread off the shelf.
Yeah.
If you're not going to a mom and pop bakery anymore, it's almost impossible to find a bread that has less than like 20 ingredients.
I haven't had a piece of bread in 4 months, but
I'm just saying, there was a brand that we used to get here locally here in Texas, and I was so excited because it had 5 ingredients. It was exactly like what you would put in it if you were making it at home. You know what I'm saying? That was the only thing listed under the ingredients. Now, not long ago, about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, all of a sudden that thing just disappeared right off the shelf. I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on with that. And I haven't been able to find anything that is like it. But in my opinion, I've gotten so used to eating cleaner, it was more enjoyable than buying the other food, because the other stuff almost started feeling spongy to me, And I know I'm going off a little bit on some of the things that are not, whatever. Anyway, but the thing,
bread is not on my meal plan, and Even when I'm not doing something as extreme as I am now, I rarely eat bread. I prefer to have rice or potatoes. I love potatoes, white
Oh,
potatoes. I
brother,
really
you're
love
much more
sweet potatoes.
disciplined than me, because that is, well, I guess we all have our strengths and weaknesses, because for me, sugars I can stay away from pretty easy anymore.
Right.
Breads, that is an area that I struggle with. Like
Yeah.
if I take
A lot
my
of people
family
do.
if I take my family to the Italian restaurant, I have a hard time not eating those garlic rolls. You know,
Well, and that's the time to do it, maybe.
yeah. So, but at the same time, I try my best to watch what I'm eating, and I try to be very careful with what I eat all week long.
Yeah.
So now, to make this more sustainable, though, for our listeners, so that it's not something that we make them feel us regimented. We have to, let's remind them, these are small swaps we're talking about to start
Yes.
with. You make small changes, like, for example, go with whole grains instead of processed grains. Maybe you go with brown rice instead of the bleached white rice. Do Greek yogurt instead of a sugary snack. You could even do a flavored water instead of soda. These are little things you can change. You may not, I enjoy water. So whenever I cut sodas and sweet tea out back in the many years ago, it wasn't a huge thing for me. I just switched to water because I enjoy it. I know a lot of people that they hate water. They can't stand it. It bothers them to drink it. Well, there's a lot of really good flavored waters out there today that are all natural in their flavors. There's no additives, no artificial anything, and there's no sugar. And that's a great alternative to give you a little bit of a flavor with that water to where it's not giving you a bunch of junk, right?
Well, it's very easy, I think, especially with liquid calories to overconsume, sometimes by several hundred calories a day. And that really adds up. We talked about earlier, feeling full or satiety. Whole natural foods, especially protein and fiber, uh, and vegetables and fruits. No one ever got fat just eating fruit. That's not a thing. Um, those keep you full. Liquid calories, they're much more challenging because they don't give you any satisfaction at all. They can satisfy perhaps a sugar addiction or take care of your caffeine needs, but definitely have to watch those, for sure. I think something closely related is also understanding calorie profiles for the foods that we eat. Essentially, the things we're talking about are going to help people eat more, feel fuller, but eat less calories because food does have a metabolic impact. There's a thermic effect of food. You have
Oh,
to
absolutely.
consume less calories than you're eating or drinking to lose weight, if losing weight is your goal.
And some
And that's the
foods
goal for
have
many.
have a higher rate than others. They'll
Right.
cause that higher burn rate than others because you get less nutrients, so it causes your body to work harder to get those nutrients. And so it can cause that, you know, burning effect.
Absolutely. And when you start looking at the foods that you're eating and paying more attention to the labels, whether you're tracking everything or whether you're just looking at the ingredients and the profile, it can really be surprising. I mean, a tablespoon of olive oil is, very calorie dense as an example, and it's lovely. It's very enjoyable, but those things can really add up if you don't know what you're doing.
Oh,
Or you're not
absolutely.
paying attention. So intentionality is one of the biggest keys, that's been for me for success. And I'm not talking about for extreme seasons like athletic events that I'm training for. I'm talking about just everyday health and fitness.
Well, talking about success, Toby, as we're preparing for success, I think there's something that we have to discuss as in prepping for success.
Yes,
Because when we don't prepare for anything, we plan for failure.
that's
I
right.
think that's really what it comes down to. And our health is exactly the same way. So if we don't plan to eat healthy, then we will fail at the way we eat because we're going to get to almost a starvation point, not literally, but figuratively, to where we feel so hungry that we're just going to eat the first thing, the quickest thing that we can. And it will not be what's best for us to sustain us within our goals and to help us make sure that we maintain a healthy diet so that we keep ourselves, in that lean mass state. And when I say lean mass, there's really that point to where, as you get older, you start putting on the pounds. It's not any, how do you put it, Toby, to make it nice? Because some people can misinterpret what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? You're not really doing it because of your aesthetics anymore, right?
Right.
It's not because of the look. You really want to try to keep the weight off because the excess fat that sits on your organs, it can actually leach toxins into your system.
Yeah, that visceral fat can be very dangerous for your health. You're right.
And so it can cause other health issues. So the type of things that we're talking about here, we're not really talking about this for the aesthetic portion of it. The aesthetics are good. However, it's really about the long-term sustained health of your body to try to make sure that you don't end up with other health issues long-term.
Yeah, I think it's really important to focus on the inputs and not the outputs. So some of the outputs could be a number on a scale, could be a certain look, aesthetics that you mentioned.
Now,
Could be
speaking of the
health.
scale, brother, the scale is your worst enemy. It really is your worst enemy when you're trying to lose weight and trying to stay healthy and fit, because
Well,
it
that's what
really
I'm talking about, focusing on the input. So if
right,
you're focusing on what you're doing, what you're eating, how many steps you're taking, what are you doing on a daily basis, and you ignore those other things, the other things happen.
right. Some of those things are not bad in themselves, like the scale. It's not bad by itself, but really it should be more like a weekly or a monthly check-in. The real thing that should be giving you your, you know, immediate line or whatever you want to call it should be like judging the way your clothes fit. You can tell a whole lot more by the way your clothes fit than by what the scale's telling you.
That's true.
And going right back, though, to prepping for success, we have to make sure that we are preparing ourselves to have healthy options that are ready to go. For example, I've started to make myself what they call like these protein oatmeal balls,
Okay.
so that they're real high in protein. They're very lean because they have no added sugars, nothing that's heavy in fats, and anything that's in there is like good fats and good grains, and stuff like that. Sugars are not bad because I use all natural whole honey, instead of any of the other sweeteners. But it is a better snack when you're in that quick fix need to get some protein in, to get some food in to help your energy level stay high. Because let's just face it, doesn't matter if you're about to go to sleep or if you're trying to work on a heavy project for work. If you're hungry, it can really distract you.
Yes, it can. And convenience is your enemy. You have to plan ahead. There are some convenient options. Premium mixed nuts is one of my go-tos.
Absolutely.
Sometimes mixing in some dried cranberries. Even though if you look at the protein, the profile on the cranberries, they're pretty much as bad as candy, but they're really delicious. Mix some of those in with nuts. But you're absolutely right. If you are running to the proverbial vending machine, which we don't have those anymore, we have mini marts and things, but there's very few options there. There are some of these really high protein bars, and they're not bad. I'm pretty happy with the days I have to eat one of those. Um, but if I plan ahead, I can have the food I need available. And meal prep is pretty extreme. Some people don't want to do that, but also don't do the opposite, which is just wait until you're famished and then find whatever's available to satisfy you.
Oh, absolutely. Um, I think it's critical, to be honest with you, Toby, to plan these things out in advance. I know whenever I used to work in an office, I've been blessed recently to start working from home. But I would have to take healthy snacks with me throughout the day to keep me sustained throughout my workday.
Yes.
And because if I didn't, there was either nothing around because of the environments that I generally work in, or there was nothing but junk.
Yeah. Snickers really doesn't satisfy, does it?
No, it really doesn't, because you'll have that sugar crash and then you turn around and it just adds up and causes more miles on the treadmill later on. Yeah. And it's kind of sad. I mean, at the age that I'm at now, everything is measured by how many extra miles do I have to run.
Yes.
Someone says, "Hey, Kirk, do you want a donut?" And I'm like, Man, that's an extra hour on the treadmill. No, I really don't.
Right.
It's like I remember what it was like and how much work it cost me to get down to the weight that I'm at now. And I really don't want to go back to what I was. I want to stay where I am and improve because I want to make sure that long-term health is there. I want to make sure that when I get old enough to have grandchildren, that I can wrestle the little stinkers in the ground if I need to, show them that granddad is the one that's, got it. That's my mindset. So I think that those are things that can happen. They can be sustainable if we have we prep for success, right?
That's right.
And also we have to have that mind shift change. So we need to change our mindset. We need to.
You mentioned the bread that you eat at the Italian restaurant with your family, or maybe the donut
Oh yeah.
at a work event. When I'm doing lifestyle health, is what I'll call it, a lot of times I'll say yes to those things. Because what I have learned is when you are having a social event with other people, I'm not talking about if you go out 6 days a week. I'm talking about what normal average people who might get together with people once a week or a couple times a month. I think that's appropriate and even healthy
Oh
to
yeah.
have a piece of the birthday cake and have a slice or two of the pizza in those environments. Otherwise, it's not sustainable long term because you're always feeling deprived and you're always
I would go as far as saying,
odd
Toby,
out.
that if we're not careful, if we get too regimented about it, we will not stick with it.
That's right.
And I remember when I first started down this journey, I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Or maybe it's 2.5 years ago. Anyway, I went to a work event. I had to travel to Illinois for work. And they took us out to this really fancy restaurant for this thing. Well, they had some really incredibly delicious looking desserts. And I'm not a cake person, but I looked at those and I thought those look really good. So I chose to have a slice, but instead of letting them give me a huge piece, I said, just give me a little bit of each of them.
Mm-hmm.
A small sliver of each. And that way, whenever I got done with it, I didn't feel guilty. I got to enjoy what I was eating, but I didn't feel like I had hurt myself. And I also didn't set myself back, right? So I was able to enjoy myself, but at the same time, I put limits on what I allowed into myself so that I wasn't opening the door to cause a problem like I'd had in the past.
Yeah.
But it's about self-control. It's about moderation. It's not necessarily about complete, exercising it away from your body forever. There has to be a little here and a little there that you can enjoy so it can be sustainable. Now, it's also about finding the balance about which foods fuel your body in a way that you enjoy it, but at the same time that you can do it in a way that's healthy and sustainable.
So, lest the listeners think that we've got all this figured out, let's take a second to share one item that Kirk and one item that Toby really shouldn't have in the house. You can go first.
Oh, well, is it something that I would actually eat or something that anyone in my family would eat?
I'm talking about what if it was in your house, what would you have a hard time
Oh, what would
turning?
I have a hard time turning down? Well, there's not really much because I make a point of not buying the stuff that I have a hard time eating. I mean, not eating.
Man, I can give you a hint if you don't know. I know the answer to your question too.
What do you think it is?
I think if you had just the right ice cream in your freezer, it would be a challenge.
It's not a problem anymore. That was one of those mind shift changes that hit me after I started doing some of that intermittent fasting. I mean, sugar has a very small hold on me anymore.
Mm,
Yeah, things have changed a little bit for me on some of those things.
okay.
Um,
I'll go first then while you think. I don't do well if there are Cool Ranch Doritos in my home. My son came. Lives on his own, but he came and spent some time with us recently, and he had some things, and I asked him to keep those in his room and not in our shared space,
Well, if you take
because
it
that
that
was a tough one
route,
for me.
and I haven't bought them in a while on purpose. But if we had it in that, we don't have it in the house currently, but if we had the pita chips in the house,
Mm,
those might be difficult with hummus.
yeah.
I mean, I know that's not the worst for you. It's probably one of the better things. But the problem is even good things become bad if you just keep eating them.
Yeah,
So I tend not to buy the things if I know that I'm just going to not be able to control myself with it.
that's right. Yeah, I've had to also ask my family to not purchase me Starburst jelly beans for Easter or birthday. That one's a tough one. So,
Or I'll do what we've talked about before offline where, I may eat those when I'm out.
okay.
Like if we get a sandwich from Jimmy John's or some sandwich place, and if I see that they have pita chips, I'll grab a bag there. That way, it's a now and then thing. It's not a convenience thing. You know what I mean?
I
So
do.
it's one of the rare treats.
So now that they know that we don't wear capes underneath these shirts,
Of
um,
course not.
what are what are some additional tips or things that has worked well for you more recently?
Probably one of the more recent things that's really helped me is looking for recipes that are like really high protein. But see, I'm also on a regiment kind of like you, not for the same purpose. I am not trying to lose weight at all at this point. I'm just trying to improve my overall health and gain more muscle mass currently. And those are my two goals. And because of that, I need a lot of protein intake. So one of the things that's really helped me on breakfast day, which is like every Saturday, we have like a family breakfast. And we would always have pancakes or French toast or something with our eggs and whatever else. Well, instead of just making normal pancakes now, we found a recipe for a high protein pancake. It's a little bit more work, but it doesn't take more than about an extra 5 or 10 minutes. And I found that right there, it makes my meal more filling. It meets my protein goals faster for the day. And I don't come back feeling like I've gained an extra 2 or 3 pounds after I finish my breakfast.
That's great. I mean, you mentioned earlier also Greek yogurt, but I have also learned if I can get my protein started early, yeah, so that for me looks like at least 30 grams of protein for breakfast. It is a lot easier to hit my goals
Oh, yeah.
throughout the day. I usually will eat eggs. Um, I don't think eggs are bad for you. I can't find any evidence that eggs are bad. And also Greek yogurt, which is by definition a processed food. It's not one of those single ingredient foods, but it's a good way to get the protein in for the day without overeating. Carbs and the sugar in those are not too bad either.
The thing I like about the Greek yogurt is if you look at the ingredient list, it has like 3.
Right.
It's not like the standard yogurt where it has like 15.
True.
I don't need all the extra starches and stuff. I just need yogurt and whatever the bacteria is that you got to make it work. And I'm good. And if you put like a vanilla flavor or something in there, I'm good with that. Other than that, I don't need any of the other stuff.
The other thing I was doing to hit my protein goals earlier in the day, not doing it currently, but I'll get back to it, and this has been done pretty much since the history of humankind. When people had meat or protein for dinner, you know, they would eat that again for breakfast. So I'd cook a steak or pork, which sounds amazing right now. I'll get back to that in a few weeks. I'd cook an extra one or two, knowing that I wanted to have it for breakfast in the morning, along with my eggs.
I don't think I've ever done that, but that sounds like a very filling
Oh,
breakfast.
old steak and eggs. That's an old Arnold breakfast, but
Oh, yeah.
you don't have to be a bodybuilder to enjoy a piece of meat, nice little pork chop, or uh, maybe a hamburger steak's a little bit crazy. I know some people will do that for breakfast. But
Well,
yeah, a little piece of meat and some eggs.
one of
Very
the
good.
interesting things that I've found recently, Toby, in my journey is, this health and fitness thing, is that most people think that only bodybuilders need to take in high levels of protein. And the reality is once you hit about 40, your protein requirements have almost doubled.
That's right. And you will lose 1% of your muscle for every year um, if you are sedentary and are not weight training in some way. And that
And you don't
protein
take
is
in
so
enough
important.
protein.
That's right. You have to have protein for muscle repair and growth.
Yeah, you need to be taking in plenty of protein along with some sort of resistance training to make sure you don't lose muscle mass. It's just what it is.
And also believe the quality of protein matters. You mentioned peanut
I
butter.
agree.
I'm going to have a spoon of peanut butter tonight, so I don't hate peanut butter, but it's not a great source of protein. But there are much worse ones like some of the processed meats, sausages. Uh, Actually, bacon, I have learned, is a much better profile than sausage from a health standpoint. I'm not saying either meat is a healthy meat, but if you are, trying to hit your protein targets with 70% beef, 73% beef, or sausages, it's going to be a little bit tough because those are much higher fat meats, and they also can lead to some digestion issues. What some of the proteins that I enjoy, of course, chicken is a great one. If you don't like chicken breast, chicken thighs are an incredible alternate. They stay moist, so if you prepare multiple meals, you'll have to heat those up and they'll be delicious again. Chicken thighs are very affordable as well.
Oh yeah.
Steak, or specifically sirloin, I know that's not everyone's favorite, but it is a very affordable and lean form of protein. 85% beef has enough fat in it to be tasty, but also not have a terrible profile. Uh, some people don't like pork for whatever reason, but I will, under normal circumstances, incorporate that in
Oh yeah.
as well.
Let's go ahead and talk about some final takeaways and encouragements for the folks.
Awesome.
I think one of the things we have to remember is this is not about you going out, going through your refrigerator and freezer and throwing everything out that you have and starting over. This is not what we're talking about. It's about one better decision at a time, one small swap as you go,
Minor changes.
minor changes, minor adjustments. And as you do so, you'll notice that things in your pantry and your refrigerator begin to change a little bit. And as you begin to swap out one ingredient for another, begin preparing your food ahead of time, choosing to approach your food with curiosity instead of guilt, always looking for that next great thing, almost like when you and your wife, Toby, go to a restaurant saying, hey, is this going to be a good one or a bad one?
Mm-hmm.
It's an exciting adventure, when you get to go to that new restaurant, because you might find the next best thing out there and you didn't know it was there, and you just didn't know because you never tried it. So any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, that's really good. We've talked about a lot of things, but I think it is about being curious and making small goals. Maybe if you don't walk at all, set a goal to walk 2,000 steps a day. If you are eating all heavily processed foods, make a goal to change that to, I don't know, 20 or 30% whole foods, and just see what changes come out from that. It's about small changes that over time can result in some really amazing effects. And I will say, from having lived unhealthy, now living healthy, it's worth it. It
Yep.
feels amazing. The way I can sleep and interact with others is in the pain that isn't there, and all of the benefits of a healthy lifestyle. It's not always easy, but it's great.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you there, Toby. And so thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. Guys, want to let you know also that we have started a Facebook group called MooseFit Tribe. And this group has been established to help you in your fitness journey. It's meant to help encourage you and hopefully bring you tips and, insight as you go through this journey. We would encourage you to get to Facebook, search for it, and go ahead and join us up there. We'd love to, catch you there. And at the same time, if you've enjoyed today's episode and you found it helpful, share your favorite food hack with us by getting on Facebook or Instagram, and use the hashtag MooseFit Method. All right. Guys, hope to talk to you next time. We'll see you then. Stay strong, keep a sharp mind, strong body, and keep yourself rooted in your spirit as well. Keep moving forward.